So let's talk about the first discussion, which is sharing a study. What I'm asking you to do is to go to Galileo, which is a vast database of scholarly articles that present research, primary research that the researchers conducted themselves. And our library has Galileo available to us. So I want you to go to Galileo and find a study and share and answer these particular questions as they relate to the study that you are going to find. In order to do that, what I'm going to do is just click on the library tab here on D2L and go to Galileo. It goes straight to the library page. And because I am off campus, I have to include the Galileo password, which is for the summer, I believe is farming. Let me try farming. Password is for everybody. And click login. And go straight to Galileo, as you can see here. And what I usually do when I'm looking for anything, I usually type the topic of my interest. Let's say crisis management. That's for PR. And I usually say study. I'm usually lucky when I put those like a keyword what I'm looking for and I put study. In that way I actually get the results of a study, because remember, Galileo has a lot of information, and some of those articles that pop up are not actually study. And to be a study, you have to be able to find all those elements that we discussed before: the introduction, the literature review, the methodology that explains what the study, how the questions will be answered. If you don't see the methodology in the study, it's not a study, even though it was published in a journal. So I usually put a study here in the search dialog, in the search box. Usually I have good luck in finding papers they are actually studying. So let's see what I come up with here. Searching. Galileo researching, and here what I usually do, I click on full text. That way Galileo will only give me the articles that actually have the PDF version of it. And I go look for studies that I think has the is actually a study, the effects of crisis response strategies on relationship quality outcomes. So let's click on that to see if this is actually a study. So I sometimes I go ahead and just read the summary, the abstract, which gives me an overview of what the study is about. This study investigated the effects of crisis response strategies on the attribution of an organization's crisis responsibility. So it looks like this was actually a study. So I go to the PDF full text, and here is the full text. And what I want you to do is to answer those questions based on the article. And I see here, there we go, the article starts with the literature review, which we talked about, is basically summarizing what other scholars have done. As you can see, he's using APA. The scholar is using APA style, last name, year, COMM's 2007, 2004. COMM's is really big in crisis management, so I'm not surprised that he was actually included in as part of the literature review. I would expect a broader literature review in this case. I'm not too impressed with the fact that this particular scholar only looked at COMM's, even though he's a major chief in crisis management. I would expect other scholars, and I would expect that you give me a broader literature review than just one particular study. It looks like he looked at COMM's in different years, 2004, 2007, but I would expect more. Then he does bring the attribution theory to help him predict what he's studying. And so he is the summary of the attribution theory. And then he introduced the formal research questions, and I believe I saw hypothesis as well. Some scholars, they have a hypothesis and a research question. The difference is usually hypotheses are answered using quantitative study, and research questions are more qualitative. We will focus more on qualitative research in this class. It's only a 4-week class, so I won't be able to really explain to you all the statistical formulas that we use for quantitative research, but I will introduce you the foundation of both. And then he's still talking about the hypothesis, and then the methodology. He is when the researcher actually introduces the research design, how the research was conducted, the participants. It looked that this was a survey. It was experimental design. It was a questionnaire. So it was a questionnaire that was used. And so here's the methodology and the results, just like the order that we talked about in the other video. And then the discussions towards the end. Let's see here. The discussions and conclusion, as we talked about in the other video, and then we have the limitations of the study and future research agenda, just like we talked in previously in the other video. You will see here an example. So what I'm asking you to do is to find a study on Galileo in your area, in the topic that you have interest, and then you answer those questions that I had that I have on D12. And here's the references too. At the end of every paper, we have the references. As you can see, it's also in APA style. So going back to D12, here are the questions that I want you to answer. Number 1 is the title of the study. Number 2 is the main purpose of the study. How many articles did the scholar review in the literature? And that's kind of very simple, as I was showing you before in that in the example that I showed you, the method of research that was used and the major findings. So if you actually find an actual study, it should be very easy for you to answer these 5 questions. I also attach here a sample study that you can also use. It's a different example that you can see the same format that we saw in chapter 1. The same format can be found in the different studies that we see. And Galileo is a great database that you can find different studies. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me.